I'm Nathan. I'm an addict.
Hey, Nathan.
My clean date is July 5th of 2003. So I've been around for a minute. But, like everybody, I have today. Now's the only thing that's real, So to qualify, my first drug was alcohol because it was in the liquor cabinet and I could replace it with water, and my parents were none the wiser because they didn't drink. So before I was even a teenager, their whole liquor cabinet was water. Sometimes I added some food coloring, but anyway, they did clue into that eventually, but that didn't stop me. That didn't slow me down. Junior high was when I was introduced to weed, and then shortly after that, what are those things called? You get them at the truck stop. Cross tops. Yeah. Running on weed and cross tops as a little 13-year-old fucking skating and ollieing fire hydrants and knocking teeth out. I ran a Muck for a lot of years, and I thought that it was normal, like I thought that everybody did that. Everybody got high, everybody got drunk, everybody did all that. And the thing is that when I went to parties, we would run out because I would hog. And, that's when I started to realize that everybody did it, but not everybody did it in the excess that I did it. And, that helped me burn some bridges and get me in trouble and all those fun things that come with our disease. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and my 2 younger brothers are a lot younger than me. So I was a great bad example, introduced them to drugs, Good job. And, fortunately for them, they didn't have the same effect. Like, my littlest brother smoked weed for a while, but then he grew out of it, and he doesn't go to meetings, and he drinks beer like he can have a beer, which I don't understand. Somebody asked me out for a beer at work, I'm like, you got one this big? And because like one is too many, and thousands just getting started. I joined the Army because I thought I could grow up by joining the Army, because my dad kept on telling me to grow up. And I was 19 when I joined the Army, and I got married on my way in because I heard it was like a lot more money if you're married. So I got like a $500 a month raise by getting married before I went in. And that was fun. I turned 20 during basic training, so I had to do like 200 push-ups for every drill sergeant I ran into. That was a blast. I don't know, the Army was kind of a blur. Because that's when I hit my 21st birthday, and like, if you're in the Army and you're 21, hell yeah, you're drinking. And I couldn't count how many times I'd have to call my wife and have her come pick me up and like be barfing into a bag in the back seat as she's driving me home. It's pretty pathetic. But I didn't have an off switch. I still don't have an off switch. So yeah, the Army was. I was not a career guy. In fact, they kicked me out. The official charge was looting a disaster area. I was stationed on an island in the Pacific that got hit by a hurricane, and I got put in charge of guarding the PX warehouse because the doors got blown off of it. And anyway, so I was drinking 40s, eating Pringles, throwing speakers into the bushes that I was going to come get later. And an MP, the one MP on the island, there was 50 people on the island because we were still like recovering from the hurricane. And the one MP on the island saw a box fly into the bushes, was like, "What was that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And not even a day later, I was up in front of the frickin' commander of the island, and he turns to my supervisor, my first sergeant, and said, "Get this soldier off my rock." And it was cool with me because they sent me to Hawaii, where I was doing dope with the hairdresser from the island. And so I was like, yeah, sent me back to, away from this stupid shit. And so yeah, chaptered me out, and I did get to go home to my wife and kid. I had a kid that right before they sent me away on a hardship tour, I had a baby boy that was only not even 6 months old, and I had to go away for a year. But fortunately, I cut that short by looting the disaster area and coming home early. Unfortunately, the only job I could get after that was McDonald's. And so when drugs were a part of my life, I would, build up and break back down and build up and break back down. And it was just a never-ending cycle. My parents, God love them, took me back in so many times as an adult. They called me their boomerang child. And, if they hadn't, then I don't think I would be here, because, the unconditional love that my parents have for me is kind of like a dog that you raise from a puppy. That's how much unconditional love I feel I get from my mom. She was told to abort me because I was a product of a one-night stand on heroin. Actually, it was kind of like date rape. This guy got my mom high and got her pregnant. And I was a result. And it was ugly. And, and the time that I was born, the street my parents or my grandparents lived on, it was just very not cool to, have a bastard child. And she fought for me, though, and, found me a good dad within a year of, I wasn't even a toddler yet, and I had a dad, and I still have that dad today. So, the sperm donor, whatever. He gave me that lovely gene of addiction, I think. I've actually written about that in my step work about, whether or not I believe in hereditary addiction. I wholeheartedly do, especially since I have two half-brothers. We have the same mom. They can drink a beer, like I was saying, and, they drop a hit of acid, and then the next day go to work. I'm off and running if I do either one of those things. So, that disease at first thought wrong, I believe, is hereditary. And fortunately, there is somewhere to go. There's not a cure, per se, but I learned that coming here is where the salvation is. So I was probably on my sixth time moving back in with my parents, and before I did this, I was living with them, and I stole my dad's really nice mountain bike, and I was trying to get away from all the dope. I had lost my job and was writing hot checks, and so I got on a bike and I rode all the way to Pismo Beach, which is halfway to San Francisco from the San Diego area. So, I don't know, a few hundred miles up the coast over a course of a couple of weeks. Hopeless dope fiend on a frickin' bike with a backpack, and shoplifting for food, and not using, but stark raving clean. And, the monkey was still on my back. And so I got to Pismo, and it was my mom's birthday, July 11th. And I called her up and said, do you mind if I come home? Still have Dad's bike? Yeah. Can you come get me? Well, why can't you ride the bike home? Well, because I'm pretty far away. And where the hell are you? And I took a moment to even realize where I was, and I was at a place called Grover Beach train station, right across the street from the Dunes entrance to Pismo. And on a side note, when I got 9 years clean, my parents gave me a picture of that station that my mom picked me up at. as a reminder of where I came from, which is really, that chokes me up a little bit. But she's like, okay, we'll come get you. I'll have to get a truck. So she had to borrow my uncle's truck. So my aunt came too. So my aunt and my mom showed up, and they saw me, and I was like unshowered, unshaved, totally like troll. Where's Shane at? I was trolling. There he is. Shane knows troll. I looked like I crawled out from behind a dumpster, and I literally had, because that's where I was sleeping. I'd throw some cardboard down and crash. Because, July in California, you can sleep anywhere. But the point being is that even with a week without using, I was a wreck. I was clean but living dirty. And so I reached out that hand one more time to my parents, and thankfully they let me in. But this time, instead of allowing me to wear long sleeves in the summertime and hide my track marks, they were like, you're going to go to meetings. And they pulled up the NA website. And I'd heard of NA. Like, I had a girlfriend that had to go to meetings because she had a court card, and we'd go all fucking spun out, and that was interesting. But, going to NA was a coming home for me. My first meeting was at a park by the beach on a Sunday afternoon. And we're sitting in a circle, and there's this dude with this tank top with this little Adidas logo, except for it's a pot leaf and it says addicted. I'm sure people have seen that shirt, right? And I'm like, that guy is fucking dealing. Because, he's going around, he's whispering in people's ears, coming back, And I'm like, and then I see him that Friday, and he's chairing this giant meeting on Friday night at a church, like 100+ people, and he's a secretary, and I'm like, holy shit, he wasn't dealing, and he was taking 18 months, which was phenomenal, because I had 13 days, and so I asked this dude, I'm like, hey, where can I get one of these books? And he's like, well, we got some right here. They're like 11, what is it? I don't know. Anyway, he tells me how much, and I'm like, I don't have any money, dude, and I live with my parents. And anyway, so he takes a book and he passes it around the room, and he has everybody, all the guys, put their name and keep coming back, and nothing changes if nothing changes. I got a bunch of fucking slogans and numbers, and this is back when people had pagers. Well, 03, there wasn't a whole lot of cell phone action yet. It wasn't the age of the brick, which we're going back to now, I guess, huh? It's pretty freaking big. So he passes that book around, and he gives it to me, and he goes, you need to get a sponsor. I'm like, dude, you're it, Well, he's like, you got to ask me. And I'm like, okay, will you be my sponsor? He's like, yeah, you got to call me every day for 30 days, and then I'll think about it. I'm like, what a dick, right? And so I did. I called him every day for 30 days, and didn't miss a day, because I felt like I wanted to die when I got to the rooms of NA, and like I said, it was a coming home for me, and my head was on fire with the disease and wanting to die, and NA was the pool, and I jumped in head first, and so after 30 days of calling this guy, we proceeded to start the steps, and for me, that's where the magic's at, that nothing changes if nothing changes. Shit's going to change. Shit's going to get real if you do those steps and you do them to the best of your ability. Somewhere in our literature, it says that if you chase your recovery half as hard as you chase the sack, that you're going to succeed. Just half as hard. I believe that wholeheartedly, because, I can get complacent and I can put it down for a long time, but as long as I put some effort toward my recovery, and in fact, early on, the sponsor used to ask me every day when I called him, He was like, what have you done for your recovery today? And he wanted an answer every day, and he didn't want to be the same shit, right? So I would have to come up with like, well, I went for a run on the beach. Oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of pre-recovery. Or like I read the Just for Today, which we fucking do like a lot in this area. Every meeting, that's the topic. But anyway, I didn't come up here to talk trash. And I lost my train of thought. So, step work with this dude that I thought when I first met him, my first impression was that he was a dealer, but what he was dealing was recovery. And what he had was what I wanted, you know. I got here with the gift of desperation, but I needed some good orderly direction. And I was I mentioned I was a skater. Well, it came with mohawks and like fuck your God and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of had like some anger issues. But, you know, this guy put it to me straight, you know, it's like your higher power is whatever you want it to be. It just has to be stronger than your disease. And so at first, my higher power was just the ocean, because like hell, dude, the ocean's pretty powerful. And you know, it's developed over time, and you know, I still can't say that I have any kind of a religious background, but that's okay because it's Narcotics Anonymous. It's not church. So, step work the first time with my first sponsor, his name was Ross, was intense. It was basic text, answer questions, define terms, like hardcore nitty-gritty shit. And then he had me defining things and looking things up and learning about my disease so I could properly deal with it, I guess. I don't know. My first round of steps was very cleansing. My third step included a daily inventory for like 90 days on applying steps 1, 2, and 3 in my life. And that was some thorough shit too. And I don't know if you've ever seen that guide. Don't have it here. No, man, I'd fucking shoot you if you gave me that when I was new. Anyway, 69 questions for step 1. Come on, seriously? No, the guide to working step 4. It's an IP. It's beige. And it's got a shit ton of questions. But I filled one of those composition books, front and back pages, by working step 4 out of that guide. And I was working as a janitor. I had like 4 hours of work to do in a shopping center, about 8 hours to do it, and a nice furnished little janitor's closet. So it was cool. I initially used that to do my step work, and then eventually I used that to go to night school and do my homework in. You know, my boss was way cool. It was this old gruffy guy that had 10 years clean that hooked me up when I had 90 days. And you know, I had this janitor job for like over 3 years. And it was a great stepping stone between, you know, having the time and having the support to do the steps, and then, you know, just having my parents take me back one more time. You know, like, I feel like once I started doing the right thing for the right reasons, everything kind of fell into place. And I feel like I'm getting a little scattered, but ultimately my point is that when you do this program the way that we do this, you know, get a sponsor, work the steps, go to meetings. And on that note, Ross told me that I need to go to at least 90 meetings in 90 days. You know, that old rigmarole. And there was a football game on one night. I was probably like 100 days in, and I really wanted to stay home and not go to the meeting. And there was only one meeting that night. And he's like, dude, what's more important, the football game or your recovery? And I'm like, well, I've been 90 meetings in 90 days. And he's like, you're sicker than most people. Come on, man, you got to stick around. And I would say you probably need to go for a year, but, it's your choice. So he, manipulated my ass into go to the meeting, which I appreciate in the long run, but, at the time, I was like, man, what the f-? But, something he also told me was that if I ever believe that he's not the best sponsor for me, to let him go and find somebody else. And unfortunately, I had to do that. I had, I want to say 6 years clean, and I could tell he was loaded. And it fucked me up. He had gotten married and had kids and done all that fun stuff that we do in recovery, and then, taken on family instead of recovery. And family was number one in his life. It was like family and then work and then not meetings. And, he started getting high in his garage because the people he worked with gave him chronic weed. So, the perfect recipe for disaster. No meetings. Family doesn't equal recovery. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that, but fortunately I haven't had a sponsor die, but I've known people whose sponsor has died on them and not clean, and that would fuck you up even worse, I think. But anyway, a sponsor is just a guide through the steps, and when they're no longer good enough for that, then you can remain friends and move on. I've had to do that a couple times in my recovery, and I'm okay with it, The sponsor I have today, I just got lucky. I told myself when I moved here, the first guy that I meet that has more clean time than me, I'm going to ask him to be my sponsor. And it just so happened to be like this pillar of recovery, and dude's the shit. Anyway, so, So yeah, back to that janitor job. I didn't quit that janitor job until I finished night school and had a job in the field that I was going to night school for. And I'm still working in that field today. I'm a monkey wrencher. I work at a dealership. I fix cars sometimes. Sometimes they come back. You didn't fix it. I tried. Fuck. But, you don't fix it right the first time, then you get to fix it free the second time. It's kind of shitty, but that's how it works. But, I never imagined my life like this. I've been wrenching on cars for over a decade, and that stuff in the reading and how it works, respectable, responsible, productive member of society. I used to fucking listen to punks. I don't need society, and whatever, and Anarchy Burger, hold the government, and all that bullshit that propaganda in my head that using just enforced. I don't chase those things anymore. I'm not a chaos junkie anymore. I prefer conflict-free evenings. Pretty cool, And I don't know. I got a few more minutes here. What's that? Service. Thank you. Service is very important to your recovery. There's some scales, you got to balance all that shit. You got to have life. You got to have fun. You got to have meetings. You got to have a sponsor. You got to have steps. And you do have to be of service, because service will keep you committed to the program. My first service commitment, I was hauling coffee to meetings at the park on a bike with a backpack. Freaking pumper thermos in the backpack, 3 miles from the house, and it was good damn coffee, and people were glad to see me, and and then it went from that. I started going to that Friday night meeting where saw my first sponsored chairing, and I wanted to sit in that chair eventually. But it started with picking up cigarette butts outside. We literally had, who wants to be the butt can guy? Like, that was where you started, and you had to, like, get voted in. Like, that's what I don't understand here in this area. Another bash on the area, but, fuck, service commitments out here? Like, you're in for life. I've been at GSR at a meeting here for, like, I don't know, since I moved here. And nobody wants it, so I'm just like, well, fuck, I guess I'll keep going because nobody wants it. But, yeah, I guess maybe the fellowship's a little larger in Southern Cal. But, we would, like, fight over who was going to be coffee maker or who was going to be butt can picker-upper and who would do that, a greeter. So, that Friday night meeting, I started as the butt can guy, and then I was greeter. I didn't want to be coffee maker, so I went straight from greeter to secretary. And they waived some clean time for me. You're supposed to have a year. And I had, like, I want to say 10 months. And they let me be secretary. And then after secretary, I was treasurer. And then after treasurer, I was GSR. And then after GSR, the meeting got shut down because we were too fucking loud. No. Well, and plus they would, like, people would smoke. I was a smoker too. People would smoke, like, right next to the church, and it would go into it was just, we were over 100 Friday night, hour and a half long with a smoke break meeting addicts, and we were loud, and it was an 8 to 9:30 meeting in a neighborhood at a nice church. So we got kicked out, and we went to an Alano club as our meeting place for a minute, and we got kicked out of the fucking Alano club in California. Like, seriously? Because there was another meeting going on at the same time, and our group was loud, boisterous, and freaking, like, so loud. So it ended up in the hospital basement because that's where all meetings go to die, I guess. There was one out there on Sunday night called the Zoo that literally was a zoo, like a few hundred people, because all the drug buggies would come, and, like, there would be a stack of court papers for the guy to sign. It was just, they just had a stamp at the zoo, because, like, you'd get writer's cramp, man. But you know what? Service is where it's at. I'm still committed today. I've run the gamut as far as, like, meeting service level. And, if you don't have a service commitment, if you have a sponsee, you're being of service to at least that sponsee. I have a couple sponsees right now, and I'm also dabbling in some H&I. I got a badge to go into the prison, and I've been trying to do that twice a month, failing. I probably do it once a month. But, when I do get out there and, what do we do? Facilitate the meeting, basically? Basically, we take a meeting into the prison. And, it's not all good times, but, I'm waiting to see one of those guys on the outside and, maybe they'll ask me to be their sponsor, They were talking about coming to the Sunday meeting, and nobody was there. I was kind of bummed. Maybe this next Sunday. And recently I went through a whole bunch of government hoops to get a badge to go to the VA hospital and take a meeting into the VA. And that's cool for me. Even though I got kicked out, I joined the Army for a reason, and it wasn't just to grow up. It was because, I believe that this country's worth fighting for. So yeah, this was my token I was looking forward to for the longest time, ever since I saw my buddy Vince, my first boss for the janitor job, take a 14-year chip, and I saw that it said XIV. I'm like, fuck yeah, I want that one. And sure enough, I made it. And with the help of Narcotics Anonymous and the people in it, the fellowship, the meetings, the service, everything that goes along with it, you can get there too if you're not already. I don't know what more to say other than I'm grateful to be clean, and I'm glad that I was asked to come up and try to share a message. I don't know how well I accomplished it, but I just stay real, speak from the heart. Thanks, guys.